You know her face, the small hunched figure in a white and blue sari, wrinkled hands holding the hands of the dying. A smile so warm and so constant that people who met her said they felt like they had touched something holy. The world called her a living saint. She won the Nobel Peace Prize. Heads of state wept in her presence. Millions believe she walked closer to God than any human being alive. And for 50 years, she felt absolutely nothing. No presence, no voice, no warmth, just darkness, just silence, just emptiness where God used to be. This is the secret Mother Teresa carried alone for half a century, and it will change the way you understand faith forever. Her name was Agnes Gungsa Bojakshiu, born in 1910 in what is now Macedonia to a deeply Catholic Albanian family. From the time she was a young girl, she felt drawn to God in a way she could not explain. At 18, she left home to become a nun. She never saw her mother again. She traveled to India. She taught at a convent school in Calcutta, and for years she lived a quiet, faithful, ordinary religious life. And then on September 10, 1946, everything changed. She was on a train to Darjeeling, and she heard the voice of Jesus, clear, personal, unmistakable. He told her to leave the convent, to go into the slums, to serve the poorest of the poor, the ones no one else would touch, the ones dying alone in the gutters of Calcutta. She described that moment as a call within a call, a direct, intimate conversation with God that set the entire direction of her life. She felt His presence so powerfully it was like fire. She knew exactly who she was and exactly what she was called to do. And she said yes. It took 3 years to get permission from the church. 3 years of waiting, of paperwork, of proving herself. But finally in 1948 she walked out of the convent gates in her white sari and into the slums of Calcutta. She had 5 rupees in her pocket. She had no organization, no funding, no plan, just a call from God and the courage to obey it. Within a year she had founded what would become the Missionaries of Charity. By the end of her life, her organization would have over 4,000 sisters serving in 133 countries, caring for the poorest of the poor. It was one of the most extraordinary things any human being had ever built from nothing. And it was right at that moment, right at the exact moment she stepped into her calling, that the voice went silent. The darkness descended in 1949. Almost the very moment she began the work God had called her to do, God disappeared. Not gradually, not slowly, like a door slamming shut. The warm, intimate presence she had felt on that train, gone. The voice that had called her by name, silent. The feeling of being loved, chosen, seen by God, replaced by a darkness so total and so cold she had no words for it. She wrote to her spiritual director, "The darkness is so dark, and I am alone, unwanted, forsaken. The loneliness of the heart that wants love is unbearable. Where is my faith? Even deep down there is nothing but emptiness and darkness." She wrote in another letter, "If there be God, please forgive me. When I try to raise my thoughts to heaven, there is such convicting emptiness that those very thoughts return like sharp knives and hurt my very soul. How painful is this unknown pain? I have no faith." She called Jesus the absent one. She wrote, "I want God with all the power of my soul, and yet between us there is a terrible separation." She wrote, "Heaven from every side is closed." She wrote, "I feel just that terrible pain of loss, of God not wanting me, of God not being God, of God not really existing." These are not the words of a woman who didn't care. These are the words of a woman dying of thirst in a desert of her own soul. And here is what makes this almost unbearable to read. While she was writing these letters in secret, she was smiling every single day, holding the hands of the dying, whispering words of God's love to people who had nothing left, telling the world that God is love, that God sees you, that God wants you, while privately she had not felt any of that in years. She wrote about her smile. The smile is a mask, a cloak that covers everything. She told one advisor, "I spoke as if my very heart was in love with God, tender personal love. If you were there you would have said, what hypocrisy." She received prizes. She received standing ovations. She received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979. And she wrote, "This means nothing to me, because I don't have him." There was one moment of relief, just one. In October 1958, after the death of Pope Pius XII, she prayed for him at a Requiem Mass. And for one brief, extraordinary moment, the darkness lifted. She wrote, "There and then disappeared that long darkness, that pain of loss, of loneliness, of that strange suffering of 10 years. Today my soul is filled with love, with joy untold, with an unbroken union of love." 5 weeks later, the darkness came back. "He is gone again," she wrote, "leaving me alone." And it never lifted again. For the remaining 40 years of her life, she served, she smiled, she loved. In complete and total spiritual darkness, she asked for her letters to be destroyed. She did not want anyone to know. She carried this alone because she did not want it to become a stumbling block for anyone else's faith. The church overruled her. The letters were preserved, and when they were published in 2007, the world was stunned. Critics said she had lost her faith, but they missed the point entirely. She had not lost her faith. She had chosen her faith. Every single day for 50 years. Not because she felt it, not because it was easy, not because God felt near and warm and real, but because she had said yes on that train in 1946. And she refused to unsay it. Even in the dark, especially in the dark. She once wrote, "If I ever become a saint, I will surely be one of darkness." She was canonized in 2016. Saint Teresa of Calcutta, a saint of darkness, the most honest saint who ever lived. I want to speak to you directly for a moment. If you have ever felt like God has gone silent, if you have ever prayed and heard nothing, if you have ever stood in church or knelt by your bed and felt completely alone, you are in the company of a saint. The woman the whole world called a living saint felt exactly what you feel for 50 years, and she kept going. Not because she stopped doubting, not because the feelings came back, but because faith is not a feeling. Faith is a choice you make when every feeling tells you to stop. Mother Teresa made that choice every single morning for 50 years, and the world was changed because of it. Your darkness is not proof that God has left you. It might be proof that He trusts you with something profound, something that will cost you everything and change everything, just like it did for a small Albanian nun who walked into the slums of Calcutta with 5 rupees and an empty heart and fed millions. If this touched you today, please share it with someone who is struggling with their faith. Someone who feels like God has gone silent. Someone who needs to know that even the greatest saints walked through darkness and made it through. Subscribe to Sacred Heart Daily for more stories of faith that will move you, challenge you, and remind you why you believe. God bless you. I'll see you in the next one.